All right. Hello. Welcome back, Baseline community, to another live Baseline show.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, whether you're watching live or tuning in later. We have Performix joining us today and some of their teammates to tell us more about what Performix is, what services they offer, the types of use cases they focus on. So without further ado, Sunil or Brooke, do one of you want to go first and maybe start with intros of yourselves and then jump into Performix?
Yeah, I'll take on first. My name is Sunil Bafna. I'm the CEO of Performix, one of the founding members. Performix started out back in 1997, and my background is more as a computer professional. You can call almost computer scientist because that's where I've spent good 20 golden years of my young age fiddling with computers back in 90s and always been obsessed, and we had to start our own company to really make use of all the curiosity that we had back in 90s. So we started out, more as a data company back in mid 90s. Now, if you rewind to 90s, data was looked at very differently. Data was not where the focus was. A lot of hot companies were more application companies. And we saw a gap. We saw that people were building data warehouses, which was version 1.0, and the data that they were loading had no quality. And they were making business decisions based on that kind of data, right? So we said, hey, this is a low-hanging fruit, and this is pre-ETL era because there was no real tool sets. So we kind of teamed up with some of the other product companies who were interested in building kind of cleansing, synchronization, conversion tools. And that's how we got started, kind of helping companies to gear up to build more of a quality warehouses to report from. So that went on for several years, and post 2000, we kind of got into the other side of the data problem, which is reporting. So if you look at business intelligence, that's what it was called back then, it's like a bow tie. One end of the bow tie data comes in, other end of the bow tie data goes out, right? So until 2000, we worked on one end of the bow tie. Post 2000, we kind of worked more on the delivery. Not that we were not doing the other end, we were doing both now. And that's where our true journey on the app dev started. So we started building a lot of custom portals around because there was lack of tools back then. And 2001, 2, we were also building mobile apps with a lot of frustration because there was no real synchronization between the hardware and the software companies. So whatever we built once, we had to redo it after a year again. So we knew mobile is going to be a big player on delivery of data because the phones were getting smarter. And 2007 is when our mobile app journey started in full throttle. We started doing a lot of mobile apps delivery for Fortune 500, SMBs, startups, in addition to obviously the analytics and data side, which had been evolving all along. So now blockchain, right? When 2008, that whole, meltdown of the financial thing, happened, this Bitcoin thing came out and we started looking at the whole blockchain thing and we're trying to understand. It took us probably 4 or 5 years to understand completely what the hell that is, right? And it was all of the things that we were looking in 90s, the neural networks, the indexing, the whole cryptography. The blockchain was leveraging all of that to give computing a new way of doing things. That's why we have been very excited to slowly empower our clients to move into that side of computing because it provides a lot of value for them. We see it could provide enhanced security in the right way, increased transparency, instant traceability, efficiency, speed, automation, infrastructureless computing. What we trying to get to is first mile, solving the first mile and the last mile problem. So for some, it is a first mile, which is a startup. For a Fortune 500, it might be a last mile problem that blockchain can address, because it requires minimal infrastructure to create applications which are reliable and and quick. So that's where we have been doing quite a bit of work in blockchain around many different topics. We have built a job marketplace, asset leasing solution, drug recall management, land registry kind of application. And it became so important that Brooke, who is like the principal architect and been a partner at Performix, had a vision of having a separate entity just to focus on blockchain initiatives and creating more products that could be leveraged by more SMBs and also the Fortune 500, as we talked about last mile and the first mile. That's EtherSign, Quick Template, the organization that we have. Performix is more of a pivotal entity for helping our clients to move into blockchain and deliver value. And baseline, Sonal and I, we had an Indranil, one of our marketing, had conversation about 6 months or maybe 9 months ago, and we were super excited. And I see Jack here too. So Jack and I, we have been in touch for quite some time, trying to figure out how we can team up and gear up to add more value and do more projects for our clients as well as theirs, in the using baseline and provide offerings and Performix muscle. So that's kind of a little background about us. I'll let Brooke maybe speak a little bit, or give it back to you guys and see if you have any questions.
Well, if there's no questions immediately, maybe I'll just launch into my background. So my technology journey started, I started developing software as a hobby, and I did that for 5 years. And then I met Sunil, and he put me on a job initially working for Train, and I did a what they call a gateway or a data gateway in the IoT space. So I wrote a data gateway for the Train mechanical systems, and we started working then, and we've been working ever since together. I guess my role within the firm has grown. Initially, I was a development resource. I started taking on some leadership positions, and right now I sort of lead teams that is delivering software for our clients as kind of my role right now, and also help with business development and a partner in EtherSign as well. But yeah, so my experience is a lot in IoT, a lot in mobile, and a lot in software delivery of all kinds. That's my role. So do you guys have any questions about our background or what we do, or maybe this is not the time for Q&A? I don't know. Okay. So Performix, what we're doing right now, why we're excited about blockchain. We, like Sunil said, we looked at blockchain some years ago. I looked at it again in 2014 when I was working with Medtronic. And at that time, they were talking about private blockchains, internally held private blockchains. And to me, that's not as exciting. There's a lot of the benefits that you get from blockchain in general do not come if they're private. So if they're held inside the organization, it's still centralized. It's still hackable. It's still, so insecure. And it really is no different than a database at that point, in my opinion. There may be some use cases, corner cases, but when you start thinking about the public blockchains and you start thinking about the Polygons or the Ethereums or Polkadots of the world and sort of the public blockchain, that to me is is a game changer because it allows you to, it changes kind of the relationship between people and the software that they use and the data that they have. So you own it. Everybody talks about Web3 as being read, write, own. And I think that ownership piece is really important. It changes a lot about how we live and how we relate to each other and how we relate to software. So to me, the horizon on blockchain is wide open, and the applications that we can build using blockchain are vast. And we're trying to take advantage of the opportunity right now. So within Performix, we've decided to launch a center of excellence in blockchain. And we've been working on it for several years. As a part of that work, we started building some projects internally, obviously, because we've got to get trained up. We got to know what we're doing if we're going to try and do it for other people. So we started building projects or products internally. From that was spawned EtherSign, which is a company that we founded in order to take these tools that we were making and apply them to the problem of small business globally. And so we're producing software for small businesses using blockchain technology. Our first product is called Quick Template, and it is think of it as documents and workflows. So if you're a small business and you want to distribute work orders to your people, you want to collect timesheets, you want to send somebody an invoice or a receipt, this is the application that you can use to do it. It's entirely on-chain, so it's as close to a truly distributed application as we could make, and it's also as much self-custody as we could put into the application is in there. So really, when you're dealing with this application, you're dealing with you and the people that you do business with. There is no centralized database of any kind. There's no authentication centralized of any kind. So as soon as you have the software on your phone, the software is running on your phone, on the blockchain, and on the phone of the person that you're doing business with. And there is no intermediary. So it's a completely different way to make software. We've been making software for years and years and years using servers. Everything has a server. It's always got a server. But when you offload that work onto a public blockchain, it changes the relationships of the people involved. And it's really exciting. And it's really a cheaper and better way to make all kinds of software, I think. And I think that, and I know that you guys probably agree with this being in this space, but a lot of companies are going to move in this direction because the upside is so huge for users and for companies.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So with the applications kind of centered towards the small businesses and helping them, with the user experience that they actually have, how like involved are they with blockchain? Like, is the feel Web2, but they, get to utilize the power of blockchain, or do they really feel like they're kind of interacting with the back end?
Yeah, I think there's an interesting tension there, right? Because you want to make it self-custody. So
Right.
You kind of want them to be aware of wallets, and you kind of want them to be aware of, here's your keys. And if you ever wanted to get this data aside from this application, this is how you would do it, right? And you want to empower people with that sort of ownership over their own stuff. At the same time, you're right. I mean, the small business owner is a busy guy. He's thinking about all kinds of things, and he doesn't have a ton of time to investigate all the fancy new bells and whistles of the technology. And it's not really in his frame of mind right now. And so how do you make an application that he can use and feels natural to him, and yet still introduces him to this idea of self-custody and ownership of data? We've tried to thread that needle, and we've worked a lot on it. I think we still have a ways to go in terms of making it easier. I don't want to ditch the Web3 aspect. I don't want to totally hide the wallet interaction. I could, Magic Link, and there's a bunch of services that would do that. Provide, I think, could do that for us as well. But I don't really want to do that because I want people to know about this amazing self-custody thing, and I want people to start interacting with it. And it also makes the back end heavier. So I don't know. I mean, we're trying to walk that line, and it's a difficult line. And hey, do you have any? What have you guys done that's been successful? Like let's. I'd love to hear anything that you guys have had along those lines that you found to be successful.
It's always like an interesting consideration you have to make, because you don't want the barrier of entry to be so high that people just don't want, they have to feel like they are going to be capable of utilizing it. But you also, like you said, you want to utilize what there is to offer. You don't want to just kind of mask it and act like it's not there. Because it is an offering, right? You want to sell those things. You want to advertise, the power of it without like overwhelming. So it's definitely an interesting line to toe, because you do have to be a little careful about it, but there's got to be like a formula for it,
Yeah, I don't think that we've quite landed on as a community what that is. I keep looking around at other projects and how people are doing this and trying to get that one that's going to be like, yeah, that's the way to do it, right? And it'll come. I think someone will come up with it. Probably won't be me. I'll probably adopt something else that a genius is somewhere come up with. But and you do want to offer it. It is powerful. I mean, it is powerful. And I think that the more people sort of internalize the value of self-custody and internalize the value of the security and the privacy that's offered in blockchain, when people start to internalize that, I think that the world will start to turn, and people will demand it. I mean, it's just so much better for the individual that I don't understand how it could not happen for long. It's going to happen at some point, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think the issue is the end consumer typically, right? You say the word blockchain, they're thinking Bitcoin, they're thinking scams, they're just thinking tokens and trading back and forth and, making money and all this. They don't think about, like you said, the security and the infrastructure and all of the new bells and whistles, all the things that you can actually integrate into apps that they would already be using. Yeah. And that it's more than just tokenomics,
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, another aspect that I think is going to drive the change ultimately is that, I don't have as much overhead. If I built this in a Web 2 way, I would have vastly more overhead, because I would have physical control or virtual control of the servers. And so I would be responsible entirely for security and for backups and, all of the things that come along with owning and holding those servers. Because we built it in such a way that it's a mobile app and the blockchain, we've released ourselves from the responsibility of maintaining those servers, because the system itself is sort of self-maintaining, Yeah. And so the cost that we can reach. And so what this allows us to do is it allows us to provide software at a cost that can be absorbed in places that otherwise would not do it. Like you got a DocuSign. So our solution, quick template, you can e-sign something to someone, right? A contract or whatever. So in terms of function, it's comparable to DocuSign in that way. But DocuSign is used here in the United States. It's used in Western Europe. It's used in Canada. It's not used anywhere else. And the reason is that the cost is just too high. You can't go down to Mexico or to Brazil or to El Salvador and try to sell DocuSign, because it's just financially unfeasible for it to work. They can't do it, right? Because they can't afford it. But if we can release ourselves from the burden of the servers, and we can start to provide software that really is a transactional software, the cost can be so much lower that we can go in places that otherwise we could not go. So we can offer our services at a level that people will accept and absorb, even in places like El Salvador or Mexico or Venezuela or the like. And I think that's pretty exciting too. I mean, the ability to, when we talk about, the unbanked and inclusivity around the world, right? But this goes for software products as well. I mean, there's many software products that we use here in the United States that we take for granted, and we just pay for it. Netflix. I mean, Netflix is $10 a month or whatever. But if you're in Kenya, are you paying $10 a month for Netflix? Probably not, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to make software that can serve these people at a price point that they can deal with, which is awesome, right?
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead, Sunil.
No, it's the ability to connect enterprise to the 80% of unconnected opportunity, right? That's where the blockchain has ability, right? Because all you need is just a smartphone, right? And the rest is leveraging that for connecting you peer to peer. So if somebody say, one of the use cases we had was, somebody in Timbuktu, Africa, or a small town, small village, runs a clinic with 2-3 doctors, and they are funded by Red Cross and need 50 pacemakers, and they need it now. And they need to connect with Medtronic or Boston Scientific. Right now, there is no way. They are not going to get it right away, because the complex systems of Medtronic cannot really deliver it to them unless it gets entered and they hear from them. So using, technology of blockchain, or even like something like Quick Template that Brooke pointed out, they could, the Red Cross and that small clinic and Medtronic can sign a contract, and Medtronic looks at the payer and say, you know what, I'm paid there. I don't care where this clinic is. Here goes 50 pacemakers from my, supply chain. And they handle all of the complex, systems. The buyer who is sitting in small town doesn't need to worry about the complex systems, and he's able to connect with that 800-pound gorilla and get what they need and serve. And Red Cross can be successful in their mission, making sure the money is going in the right place. So those are kind of applications that are yet to be written to really make this world come alive, right?
And I think that's a good place for Provide and a baseline protocol too. I mean, to your point, one of the issues with like Medtronic connecting with a small clinic somewhere is that in order for the clinic to enter data into the Medtronic system so that the big gorilla can work and produce the product, they have to grant access to these people in their database, essentially, right? And they're reluctant to do that with small organizations for obvious reasons. It creates a big security problem. But if there was a way to sort of build that abstraction layer, like what you guys do, then the small entity could bounce information off that abstraction layer, and Medtronic could still digest that information and avoid the security issues that are involved, and they can cooperate better. I guess that's what Sunil thinks is talks about being the last mile for a big corporation like Medtronic and the first mile for a small organization like the clinic that's set up in rural Kenya, right? So there's a huge opportunity there, I think.
Yeah, get inefficient intermediaries out of the picture, so you have that peer-to-peer impact between business and your customer or vendor, right? Unlocking those relationships you didn't have before, because sometimes they were cost prohibitive, right? To even set up, right? So that's a big deal, because like companies are doing business, they want to work with agricultural suppliers and globally, right? As well as, how are these other privacy sensitive things in terms of, invoicing, like that's where baseline, comes really useful, where we want to, represent the state of something, but not necessarily put it fully on chain. But there's a mix of both of those things, right? We're doing on-chain interactions, and we're doing proofs, and still conducting this in a very peer-to-peer type way, right? Through something like Provide Payments as an example, or ESG things, but the whole platform orients around different things. And thinking about blockchain, it's always about thinking about the other benefits to the enterprise, right? So enterprises today, when they do regular banking, they don't get tracking IDs on their transactions or payments, right? It's kind of nutty. They just get their bank statement, right? So they have to do this head in the sand approach every day to figure out, what payments actually settled to what vendors or what they received. It's you'd be surprised how archaic like enterprise payments are into enterprise systems today, and how just something like a transaction hash that blockchain has on transactions is a huge innovation still yet for companies to adopt.
Yeah, just don't tell them it's a hash.
Yeah.
Don't use that word. That's bad.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about just like basic transaction hashes, like that are just identifiers just themselves, right?
Yeah, no, that's fine if you talk about identifiers, like, but talk about like transaction hashes or anything like that with an FP&A department, and the people's eyes will roll into the back of their head and tell you to go take a hike.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to sell it in terms of what are the business process efficiencies to an AP department, right? How many hours are they going to save in terms of reducing time to settle, right? Or having like kind of just leaner AR AP balances and processes in general. That's the language that these businesses are looking for to be sold to.
And they'll still track it in an Excel spreadsheet.
They will.
They will still do it no matter what. It's like, even if it settles instantly, doesn't matter.
Which baseline is great for too. We've done so many great things with Excel in baseline, right? So, yeah. It's about user experience is a big part of the last piece of this puzzle, right? Which I'm sure you guys at Performix have built some great user experiences, right, around things like either sign. It's always like the central thing of the product. The backend architecture can be very simple to think through, but then you got to think through, how is a human being actually going to interact with this thing, right? That's always the when people test things, right, like in software, they come up with strange permutation of tests and how people use software. It always surprises me, right?
It worked when I used it. I don't know what you guys are doing differently.
Yeah. There's this like funny video of a lady with like the little shape sorter toy, and like, it's the circle. Where does it go? It goes in the square hole. It's the triangle. Where does it go? It goes into the square hole. Like, there's like a whole meme format of that where software people relate to that in terms of functional testing to apps.
I think you hit it on the head, though. We as an industry have an issue with UX right now.
Yep.
In the blockchain industry entirely, there's an issue with UX, and I think it gets solved in two ways. I think creative people like the people on this call and the people that are listening will come up with UX solutions. Hey, it'd be easier if we did it this way. And so that part will grow. And also the other side, which is a lack of understanding in the public or within the boardrooms of the technology and the terminology that's involved. And I think that will come also. And somewhere in the middle, these things will meet, hopefully. But we do spend a lot of time thinking about how do people interact with stuff. And when we make a tool, we're imagining the guy who's using it, and he's sitting there and he's thinking this. And there's a lot of time and energy we spend on that for sure.
Yes. No, we are very excited with being able to do more with baseline and also consensus. And now for last 1 year or so, we've been deeply in conversation with Provide. So hopefully we can team up and do more. We definitely see future very bright, with all these technologies coming together and all these mindsets, coming together. So.
Yeah, so we're looking towards on the EtherSign front with Quick Template. We are with Quick Template. I think we're going to get to the place where we do, if they'll let us do this, we will do work order invoice payment workflow for small business. So you're a small business, you have, we've got one customer who's a a car detailer. He's got 6 guys that work for him. He's in San Diego. He goes out to their driveway. He makes their car look sharp on the driveway. That's his business. He's got trucks that run around. And so he uses our application to distribute work orders. So a call comes in, hey, I'm Joe Blow over here. I need my car worked on. He distributes that work order to one of his guys who's out remote, in the field. And the guy is able to go out there with all the information on the form and able to do the work. And then he checks off on it when he's completed the work, and that lets Carlos know that the work has been completed, and now he can send an invoice to his customer. And so we're getting to that place. We have already got that invoice. We've already got the work order. What we haven't done yet is sort of the remittance or the payment of that invoice. And we may get in trouble. We're kind of walking the line with the mobile app stores about what they will, specifically Apple will allow in terms of what you can host on their store. So we'll have to be a little bit careful with that. And I don't know exactly how that's going to go, but I think we need to get there because it kind of closes the loop for our small business customers and is going to become a greater value to them if we can get it done. So I think with Quick Template, that's the direction we're headed. We'll see where it goes.
And I think you're actually tackling another key area, which happens with like kind of mobile field service type of operations, and that's connectivity, right? Because so many times when different industries that have like mobile techs, those types of forms don't have great connectivity to back-end systems, right? Because sometimes you're in a place where there's limited cell connectivity, you can't connect to a VPN, it just doesn't work that great, for people who gotta be on their feet or in their car or out in the field working, right? Or on an oil rig, right? That's where blockchain is actually this really great state machine in terms of anchoring some state of data so that when you get back to it, right, into these full integrations, it's handled asynchronously really well.
Yeah, it really is. I think so I was watching this video. It was a walking tour. I don't know if you guys ever see these, but you go walking tour and then type in any place in the world and you'll get a guy with a camera on his chest that just walks through wherever, Rio de Janeiro, any place, right? And so I was watching one on Jakarta. I think it was Jakarta in the Philippines. And he's walking around and there's these little tiny streets and he walks into a house. And this house, I mean, it was one room, right? The bed's over here, the kitchen area is over there. And there were 7 people in that room. And I thought, okay, these people do not have a lot of resources, but what was in that room is 2 mobile devices in that room. Everybody's got a mobile device. Everybody in the world has a mobile device. And so if you're not making software on mobile, you're not really making software for the people in the world, right? I mean, you can make a mobile website, yes, but a mobile app is a great addition and makes it, in a sense, more decentralized. Because once you have my software on your phone, I can't remove that software. I can't touch that software. You're going to run that software whenever you want. So we think that the marriage of blockchain and mobile is a really powerful concept too. And it allows us to do it cheaper. There are like work order systems that you can buy, right? And in the United States, you probably buy them. If you have 10 guys, you probably buy a work order system and they're great. They do all kinds of stuff. They do analytics, they do all kinds of stuff, right? But it's going to be $50, $60, $100 a month, right? And so if you're in Colombia, you're not doing that. And so what are you doing? Well, you're using text messages or, paper forms, right? That's what you're doing. You're not using one of these electronic systems. And so I think that we have an opportunity here to duplicate much of the functionality of a work order system, but do it, in a way that, our average user is going to spend maybe 20 cents a month, right, to work this application. And for a small business in a place like Colombia, that's a number that they can digest. Whereas, $100 a month is unworkable.
I think it's also about this, right? Is when you connect these global businesses, into these new markets, right? It actually creates some new opportunities for market expansion, right? So there's probably a level set even on, products and SaaS products and pricing overall, where it's like, hey, if this farmer is going to make $5,000 extra, right, from usage of these platforms, now your economics of what's palatable to them service wise is it actually increases because you've improved the quality of their business, right, along the way, right? So that's good business, right? Is when you do good by your customers and they do good by you, right? So
Yeah, it is proportional. I guess if
Yeah.
you can make more money, the problem is that in Colombia, if you're going to pick up, like, you're going to take a load of garbage from somebody's house to the dump, right? That's a service that happens everywhere in the world.
Yep.
In the United States, you might pay, I don't know what you pay here, for $400 maybe to have somebody come out and pick up some junk from your house. You're not going to get that in Colombia. Nobody's going to pay $400 for that service. You're going to get that service done for $10 maybe. What do you think? I mean, I've never been to Colombia. I'm just guessing. So, like, maybe you guys been to Colombia? Sunil, what do they get for picking up a load of garbage in India?
Well, Colombia, you probably said it about right? I mean, probably somebody, will come and pick it up for almost free, and in India, you'll pay a little bit more now because they are kind of, on the same track as we are, right? So yeah.
Yeah, it's all about competition, right? The more available opportunities there are, the more people seem to charge for some things, right?
Yep. No, it's the understanding of your customer, right? We here have been talking about voice of the customer for last 20 years, right? We are not talking about voice of who wants to be our customer. And that's where the value is from these protocols, these new paradigm shift way of building application is like, all right, we embrace everyone. If you can add value, you make money, and everyone is happy. Everyone gets their fair share. And the wonderful thing is we are building application on something where financial are automatically given. It's, the crypto is lying underneath. But right now, the crypto is such a bad word that we are running away from it. So it's very interesting. Just like I look at this and reminds me of the mid-90s when web browsers were looked at like, oh, this is for pornography. This is not for doing business.
Right.
So here we are. Again, it's not looking at the real strength of the technology and really working with it. Obviously, there's a lot of vested interest in legacy systems that people are making a lot of money for very little value. And here it is, it's coming soon. A lot of value for what brings value to you pay. And that model is bound to come because that's where the direction of flow is. You can swim as much as you want against the flow. That's going to take you. That's the feeling that we have for blockchain and technology related to this that come, in combination with AI and all the other good stuff,
Good point, Sunil. Yeah, there's a big upside for the blockchain, and we think it's going to grow. And so Performix is planting a flag. We've been working in this space for some time, and we want to be one of the people you think of as a potential option for building custom software using these tools, using baseline protocol, using provide, using the other things that people have built in the community.
Very cool.
Any other questions or topics from anyone in the audience?
you guys have a podcast I found online, right? Like the Technology podcast. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, that is something new. We just I think Ken, one of our, he's one of our marketing leader. He's the one who kind of driving that, and he feels that, should be kind of driving our, a lot of our potential customers and customers come to our website. So giving them more of a reason to get some value out of the, as they find us online, or, listen to us, listen to folks in our ecosystem. So we might reach to one of you guys too for a podcast, as to kind of talk about specific things that you feel passionate about. I think that's the whole idea, is to listen to the real stuff in a very quick way, get the essence of what you are, what you might want to learn at different levels, right? You could be an executive, you could be an architect, or you could be a developer, or just a layman, trying to figure it out. What is blockchain? What is AI? Or how can I use it on a day-to-day basis? I'm running my business. How can I improve my bottom line, using these data? Is this relevant to me, or it's not relevant to me, right? So that's the idea behind that podcast, so knowing the technology, and then, then using it and implementing it.
Yeah, that's great, because I feel like in the enterprise space, especially in enterprise software, people are in such a swirl. They are like in their operations and their kind of tunnel vision of what's going on in their own company, and they want to learn more about these things, but they just don't. They don't get prompted, with a challenge all the time. So great, really cool that you're doing additional podcasts there. Where else can people find out more about Performix online, right? What are some other things you have out there? I think you mentioned EtherSign. I was just checking out this website for EtherSign. It's EtherSign.app, right?
EtherSign.app, that's right. And that'll link you to the product website, which is quicktemplate.app. That's the first product. There's another one listed there that talks about Escrow, which is something that we're working on, another powerful tool for small business, help people cooperate, right? I want to talk about Escrow for a little bit. Like, this is pretty interesting to me.
Yep.
I hope it's interesting to you also, but Escrow.
One of the things, before you get into it, Brooke, I wanted to let Ryan know, if you have a thermostat in your house, and if it happens to be a Honeywell thermostat, think of us, because all of that software is done by us, from soup to nuts. So if you download a Honeywell app, TCC or something, or using a security system, that's all done by us.
Yeah, that's where you can find us too, on your wall. But our brand is not. But Escrow is interesting. Like right now in the United States, we use Escrow for real estate transactions, right? Essentially, I don't think you use it really for anything else. But it's a useful little tool, because it removes trust. The way that I think about it is, if I think about, I'm going to build a table for you, right? But I don't know you. So you come to me, you say, I want you to build me this grand table. And I say, okay, great. I build tables. But in order to build this table, I've got to lay out $1,000 for lumber, because you want it all walnut and all this stuff, right? So it's going to cost me $1,000 to just buy the stuff to build the table. But I don't know you, so I don't know if you're going to pay. So I'm reluctant to go out and spend this $1,000 to get this material, because I don't know ultimately if I'll get paid or not. At the same time, you don't know me. And so you're not going to shell out $1,000 to me, because for all you know, I'll never produce the table and just run off with your $1,000. So we've got a problem of trust. And this problem of trust could be solved with an escrow solution. And so instead of you giving the money to me, you put the money in escrow. We both understand how it gets released from escrow. We understand the rules that are involved. Now, this frees me to, okay, I know that the escrow is there. I know ultimately that it's going to be distributed in this way. Now I'm comfortable. I can go out and I can spend $1,000 I need to buy the lumber to start making the table. And then I make the table and I deliver it to you, and then you release the escrow money. And this is a tool that we can use to do business better, even though we don't know each other. We don't trust each other. And this can be done all doing on smart contracts, all on the chain, all peer-to-peer is kind of the concept. And so you would go to this app and you would set up an escrow agreement with another person, and you would define the characteristics of that contract, and then that contract is there, and the execution happens how it happens, but it happens peer-to-peer on chain between two people without intermediaries. And I think, escrow is such a powerful tool, and that's kind of the way that we use it in real estate. But in the United States, we only use it for real estate because right now, if you want an escrow, you got to go to a bank or somebody, and you got to set it up, and there's paperwork, and there's people involved, and there's process involved, and that all costs money. And so you want to set up an escrow, you're going to spend $1,000 setting up the escrow. Well, you can't set up an escrow that costs you $1,000 to set up. If the payment is only $200, you're not going to do that, right? So it ends up only getting used for large purchases. $200,000, $300,000 purchases is where you see escrows being used. But there's no reason those same conditions exist at a smaller dollar amount. But it's unworkable because of the current solutions. But with blockchain, we could create a solution that would be almost free, that anybody could set up in a couple of minutes and could solve that problem for people around the world. And so that's the next thing that we're sort of working on here at EtherSign. If you go to ethersign.app, you can see information about both the existing quick template app and a little bit about what we're calling crypto escrow right now, but I'm not in love with that name. So maybe we'll change the name.
Yeah, I would remove any reference to crypto. And by the way, if anyone needs to download anything, you're already screwed. Right? It's like if they need to if they see like hex values and stuff like that, you're screwed. If they see like, oh, it's like if they need to manage keys, forget about it. It's like you will never get mass adoption. Never, ever. Period. People don't want to manage keys. You and I maybe, right? Because we're geeks, right? 99.99999% of the world population will give you this one, right? They won't. They don't want to, and they would, and they never will.
I disagree wholeheartedly, and here's why. In 1996, I watched a television program where the people were going, "Does anybody know what email is? This something at something. What is that? Anybody know what internet is?" That's what they were talking about, and no one was going to adopt an email address.
Yeah.
They will not. It's like I'll tell you. I've built apps. I've done UX. As soon as there's like MetaMask or anything like that, you need custodial key solutions. Absolutely. If it fits into their current mental model, yep. Otherwise, it's like been there, done that, and it is incredibly painful. And most people don't even know what the internet is. They just know it's like they don't even remember their own phone number.
There is this aspect though. I give people to consider, right? So like self-custodial key management, like a ledger or a MetaMask wallet. You use those already as an individual for different purposes. Like you like everyone has like in crypto, like they have your ledger for your cold funds, your cold storage, and then your MetaMask for doing crazy stuff online, right? There's even flavors of that, like going into the enterprise where there's different, guarantees or assurances of how those keys are managed, right? Who gets to look at those? When are they accessed and used to sign transactions? That's where I think there's a huge opportunity to like realize this further. And this idea of escrow is really cool because that's like a foundational thing of like doing invoice factoring. Because the whole idea behind invoice factoring is, hey, if I get this work done, I'm gonna get paid, right? And like how do the best way to represent that, if there's an escrow fund that says, hey, once the party like does the proof of goods receipt and proof of invoice receipt gets released to me and I'm paid, like that's solid. That's like a collateralized like thing, right? Because it's like all you gotta do is just fulfill the work at that point, right? So that's a business, that's a real business innovation, because there's whole industries of just working capital, right? That's why Talia exists, right? For example, which is a big like trade financing thing that SAP just bought up. But the trade finance gap is a huge one in
Huge one.
blockchain that's getting addressed.
I do agree with you that these people ultimately right now are not interested in wallets, are not interested in private keys, are not interested in anything that looks like Web3. I agree with you. My only contention is that I think that the value proposition of owning your own stuff is so strong that ultimately people will adopt it, even though it's difficult. Ultimately, that's my position on that.
Yes, if you do the education starting in kindergarten, and you have the teachers who have the knowledge who can educate properly and understand that. So in 2 generations, if
no, we didn't do that
the
with
world is
email.
still around.
We didn't do
No,
that
but
with
email is simple. There's no value attached to it.
it wasn't
It doesn't
simple
matter.
at the time. It wasn't simple.
Yeah.
at the
No,
time.
I know, but it
Yeah.
was not. It didn't break. It didn't break until Microsoft forced TCP/IP on everyone with Windows 95. Right? Before that, it was all walled gardens. There was no real mass adoption, right? Forcing TCP/IP blew everything up, and then email became a thing. It's again, people got then used to logging in username, password, and stuff like that because they had internet service providers and they liked surfing. Right, but again, it's like emailing is relatively simple. Yes, I started emailing where I typed SMTP, the email address, and then the text file where I wrote the email back in 91 on an alpha workstation, right? So but I know the history, and it's just like I'm like, and I've been there like so many times, and it's just super painful, and people are just, they are not interested in that unless you tell them, you do this, there's like a lot of value. You're screwed totally if this gets, and then they're getting scared. It's like, what? And then can my bank take care of it? And then sure, right? That's why custodial solutions for the vast majority of people are going to be what's going to happen. It's like everybody works with Google, everybody works with Facebook, and they're comfortable with that. Self-custody is going to be micro fraction of the world.
Andre, isn't it driven a little bit by what incentive people have? I mean, obviously, people in US have no incentive to remember these long keys. But then again, we are dealing with passwords, 15 different passwords with each ecosystem that we interact with. We did not do that 10 years ago. I mean, how many passwords people are dealing with, right?
That's why you have 1Pass and LastPass and
yeah. There is technology that is empowering that, but the guy sitting in Africa, a small town, who wants 50 pacemakers, and there is no other way of getting it easily, right? He will remember the key. He will keep his key because that's how he's going to get paid. And that's how he's going to get what he needs, because we have choices here, right? We have a lot of, until we get challenged by other systems from outside, we are not going to do that. But if you give somebody an incentive saying, hey, I'll give you $5 coupon, remember this, copy this 10, some will do it. I think there isn't enough incentive to a layman. And
this is like world. This is like now we're talking about WorldCoin and the orb and that kind of like incentive system. It's like, sorry, that gets an eye roll from me. In Kenya, you have 60% of the population have a cell phone. Probably now more. It's probably now like 70%. But you need to take into account the level of education and what it's used for and what they're comfortable with and what fits into a mental model, a current mental model of a user. You can't just like do a step function like that. That doesn't work. You need to gently take them up and on ramp, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're still working primarily with SMS. Payments are done via SMS. I mean, seriously. It's like, I happen to know that because it's like I've been involved in projects like there, and it's like payment system. You have a, they text you something, you text something back, which is sort of like your own thing, like a secret that you remember, a simple one, and done, right? That works. That works because it's simple. People don't need to, you're not forcing people to change the way how they're doing things fundamentally. If you ask them to do that, they will only do that if there are two reasons. Either they get massive amounts of money, or you displace them / threaten their lives. It's the only way how human beings change.
And there's this too. There's a spectrum of like how much someone will use the services in what way or another. Some people will be full self-custody. Some will avoid it at every given turn. And there's going to be people that are kind of come in the middle where they may do something like they will receive a payment through crypto and they'll keep some in self-custody and offload some to a bank, right? And
why does it have to be in crypto? Why can't you do just in everything in the background, and it's integrated into your Apple Pay, into your Google Wallet? If you want mass adoption, this is how you get it.
Yeah, so something like I think of the Cash App, for example, right? Which is, both a debit card, like a mobile wallet, and a Bitcoin wallet, all in one, right? You could use any of those modes, with it. I think those kind of options are pretty cool, actually. But yeah, some people are like so self-custody that they don't want to even touch that, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like
but most people,
that's a minority. I think it's a growing minority, but it's fascinating to see, like, what product market fits are there for what kind of user groups, right? And I think it is worth challenging from time to time in terms of.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that, but it's like you have to be realistic. And then if you're a startup project that has funds and that needs to deliver on an 18 to 24 month time frame, you don't really have the luxury of like waiting for a long tail adoption. You need to solve a problem that fits into people's current mental model.
I think this this bank run on Silicon Valley Bank was really compelling, right? Because you went through a couple weeks of some startups thinking that they had lost all of their deposits from the bank entirely, and others that were crypto startups who had treasuries on chain. For a brief while, we were thinking they were looking a little bit better. USDC had depegged some, but they still had access to money that the Silicon Valley Bank hadn't been backed up yet, right? So it's a different kind of world, right? It's always, when you're trusting the fiat system of banking, whether or not you feel trust in that is kind of relative to your geography and the time period and so many other factors, right? And how much money's at stake as well, right? That's why I think there's going to be a balance of all of these things kind of intermingled here in the future.
The way I look at it is just like there's a pain of change, and then there's an opportunity. Yeah. And when that opportunity becomes greater than the pain of change, then people will change. Yep. And that's it. And so like when you start talking about property registry in a place where there has never been property registry, that's an amazing innovation. And people will change to get that benefit. It depends on how strong the benefit is and how strong the pain of change is, I think.
Yeah, I think the point that Sunil made and you're making is that it's important to remember too the lack of options and opportunity that a lot of people have. It's easy to think about what we have in the United States and in places like that, first world countries with all of these different modern technology, modern infrastructure, modern banking and financial institutions, but that doesn't make up the majority of the world. It's just the majority of the users that we kind of consider when we build these kind of applications. But there's a lot of people with a lot of problems that can be solved that they would be willing to, they'd be willing to adopt it. And because the change that they have to make doesn't seem so steep to them because they don't have the easier options that are available elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree. And the opportunities are stronger, right? I mean, like if you're living in a country where, you know, your entire net worth has been destroyed by inflation 4 times in your lifetime, you know, Bitcoin starts to look pretty good, even if it's technically not that easy to do, you know? So there's a lot of people have a lot of strong opportunity, I think, with blockchain. But I agree with you 100%. If you're a startup out there and you're watching this, yeah, go with a custodial option, because you're going to be expected to perform in 18 months, and a change like that is not going to occur in 18 months.
All right. So we made it past the hour. Great discussion. Thank you, Performix team, for joining us and telling us more about what you're working on within Performix and around. I will share the links that we shared in chat today on the YouTube channel. And please join our baseline show anytime in the future, as well as some of our working groups to get closer to the work.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you
a
guys
good
very
week.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sunil. Thanks,
Great.
Brooke.
Thank you for coming. Awesome stuff. Good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.